Hey everyone, it's your Peacekeeper coming at you with the next video in our How to Play series on the Japanese destroyer lines. This is the Tier 8 Akizuki class destroyer. The Akizuki class destroyer is a class of 12 completed and 39 total planned destroyers built by the Japanese Navy from 1940 to 1945, and the name means Autumn Moon. The class is a radical departure from other Japanese destroyers in that the guns took priority over the torpedo capabilities of the design of the ship. Featuring 4 dual-purpose twin 10cm gun mounts and air radar, the Akizuki class destroyers were highly regarded as being one of the most well-rounded destroyers built by the Japanese, and one with very good AA performance. In fact, that's really what they were designed to do, is to be anti-aircraft escorts for larger ships. The radical departure in the ship came from the use of only a single quad torpedo mount with a quick reloading capabilities versus 2 or more of these mounts on other Japanese destroyers. And of course that would get replaced with an additional gun mount, as previous and succeeding destroyers would have the 3 5-inch gun mounts, the twin gun mounts, 1 in the front, 2 in the back. Akizuki features 2 in the front, 2 in the back of these 10cm gun mounts. The Akizuki class destroyer has 2 subclasses, the Fuyutsuki and Michitsuki class of destroyers, and the real big difference between those is they made some design changes that made production of them much faster. Interestingly enough, Michitsuki did not get finished, but the second one of the class did get finished, and then the rest of them were all canceled before the end of the war. In terms of service history, given the heavy emphasis on anti-aircraft capabilities, the Akizuki class and subclasses were used extensively as anti-aircraft escort destroyers for a number of very famous ships. Suzuki and Fuyutsuki were both involved in Operation Tengo, which was effectively the suicide mission of the Yamato, and only Suzuki, Fuyutsuki, the Kagero-class destroyer Yukikaze, and the Hatsukaru-class destroyer Hatsushima survived that engagement. During that engagement, Suzuki took a torpedo which destroyed the bow of the ship, and due to quick thinking on behalf of the captain, they were able to save the ship by sailing it backwards to port to get rebuilt. Interestingly enough, Fuyutsuki also took a torpedo from the U.S. submarine USS Trepang while escorting the Japanese-like cruiser Oyuda to the inland sea from her harbor. Fuyutsuki in August of 1945 was also hit by a mine which heavily damaged her. She was surrendered without repairs or armament at the end of the war. Akizuki herself, she has an interesting history as well, and, well, I guess you can... I don't know the right way to say this. In terms of the lead ships of the class, she really didn't do a whole lot, but she was sank in the Battle of Cape Engano, due to what is most likely an airdrop torpedo, or possibly a torpedo from the USS Halibut. But of course, all of these ships did see extensive use throughout the war, just not in very many well-noted battles. In terms of their in-game gameplay style, the Akizuki class destroyers, well, of all the Japanese destroyers, none of them have been hit quite as hard as Akizuki has been with the stealth fire nerf. Her gameplay style has changed a little bit. It just involves a much heavier use of smoke, as well as a little bit more reservation on when to light stuff up. Of course, it's very tempting to just use those ridiculous guns with the 3-second reload time to just absolutely light ships up, but at the end of the day, the best thing I can recommend that people do is to treat it like a U.S. destroyer, except for one key aspect. You still have to treat it like a Japanese destroyer when it comes to handling the destroyer versus destroyer engagements involved in caps around, islands and stuff, because the ship doesn't have the maneuverability of other destroyers. She tends to take a lot of damage before getting out of those situations. So you want to pre-plan much, much further in advance with the ship when it comes to dealing with destroyers. Thankfully, there are 2 things that really help this destroyer out in those engagements. One is the fact that if they are broadside to you, your armor-piercing rounds will absolutely destroy enemy destroyers. And if they are bowing to you, and if you run IFHE, which is the inertial fuse for HE, or HEAP, HE armor piercing, you can use those guns to help with that as well. If you don't, these 4 centimeter, the 100 millimeter guns just simply don't have enough penetration in their HE to actually penetrate the POW armor of a destroyer. And so a skilled destroyer captain will definitely go bow in towards you as soon as they see you. So get as much as you can off with the AP and dive into HE with the IFHE when they get in bow to you. But as always, plan accordingly and have support if you can. The torpedo gameplay, as you can imagine, is pretty weak. However, this ship does get access to the same 5-second reload booster that Shiratsuyu gets, which definitely makes for some lol-tastic moments when you launch the only set of torpedoes that you have and they go, he's only got one, and then all of a sudden there's the second set. Not nearly as flexible with torpedoes as other destroyers are, but it still has very strong torpedoes. Let's dive into those stats and we can talk more about those torpedoes. In terms of hit points, 20,400 hit points up to 19 millimeters of armor. The main battery consists of those 4 twin 100 millimeter or 10 centimeter 65 caliber Type 98 dual purpose guns. They have a 12.5 kilometer main battery firing range, a 3-second reload time, and an unusually fast, for Japanese destroyers, 11.3 second 180 degree turn time. You can see that the fire chance is really low. As soon as you pop IFHE on your captain, you will lose some of your fire chance, so don't count on starting fires if you're running IFHE without running Demo Expert. The torpedoes, she has 1 quad 610 millimeter launcher. They have a 10 kilometer range, 67 knot speed, and they do 21,000 damage. And those are the same torpedoes that I believe come on Shiratsuyu, and they pack a wallop. And you do have the ability to shoot 8, which isn't terrible. That's with using the reload booster. That's about average for the Japanese destroyers. However, every now and then you are only going to be able to launch 4 as you wait for your reload on torpedo reload booster to come back up. And so you're a little bit more limited in overall what you can do with it, but you still have torpedoes, and they do pack a punch. The Akizuki also has one of the strongest anti-aircraft batteries of any destroyer in the game. This thing is nuts. If you set it up as manual fire control, like with manual fire control for AA and as an anti-aircraft boat, you definitely push out those guns, those 100 millimeter guns, out there. You know, they come stock at 4 kilometers without advanced firing training, but if you take basic firing training, advanced firing training, and manual fire control for AA, you're looking at some absolutely ridiculous amount of DPS. 92 without all of that stuff. If just throwing manual fire control for AA on there is going to bump that up to 184 DPS just for those guns. Unbelievable. The ship also has a boatload, no pun intended, of 25 millimeter 60 caliber Type 96 Mod 1s. There are 7 triple mounts and 18 single mounts littered throughout this ship, and a full AA build is just nuts on this thing. And if you're looking to really troll CV aircraft now that CVs are finally coming back, this is the ship for you. It is a little bit more well-rounded, and as a result, you can take, if you wish, the AA Guns Mod 2 to boost that range even further. However, she comes with a significant downside. For one, she only goes 33 knots, which, without a speed flag, you're getting chased down by Iowas. You will see Iowas in this ship quite frequently, and they can actually run just as fast as you can. And they pack a much bigger punch than you do and are a lot harder to kill than you are. You also have a 730 meter turning radius, which is comparable to the North Carolina class battleships, but thankfully you have a 3.7 second rudder shift time, so at least you can kind of sort of get away. You can wiggle a little bit as you're running away. But that 730 meter radius and what I'm going to call rudder effectiveness at like half rudder, it doesn't seem to change directions nearly as well as the ship's profile would seem to indicate. And so my best recommendation is definitely to utilize smoke as much as possible, or hard island cover, kind of like in Atlanta. Open water firing comes with significant risks due to the lack of, rudder shift time and turning radius and speed. She's just way too easy to hit when doing that. Let's dive into those modules. I recommend Main Armaments Mod 1 if you're not setting the ship up for pure AA duty and running preventative maintenance, which you should be running preventative maintenance. Main Armaments Mod 1, that reduction in the, chance of your main battery and torpedoes becoming incapacitated is a big deal on destroyers, not so much on other ships. It really is important, but if you are going to run the ship as an AA boat, I do recommend running Auxiliary Armaments Mod 1. That's going to increase the hit point pool of all of your AA guns by 100%. In the second slot, there's two options that are viable. Aiming Systems Mod 1 if you're looking for the gunnery role, AA Guns Mod 2 if you're looking for the anti-aircraft role. Both of those are viable options depending on how you want to play the ship. I recommend Propulsion Systems Mod 1. That's been the standard since basically day one. Damage Control Systems Mod 2 is pretty much useless. Propulsion Mod 2 with this ship is really frustrating because your rudder shift time is like 5 seconds without without the steering gears Mod 2. I just don't see this ship being viable without having a halfway decent rudder. So I definitely recommend running steering gears Mod 2 for that 20% reduction in rudder shift time. In the final slot, there are a number of different ways to play this. Personally, I run Concealment Systems Mod 1. Concealment is still very important for this ship. The additional rudder shift reduction from steering gears Mod 3, or running steering gears Mod 3 in this slot, and the Propulsion Systems Mod 2 in the fourth slot, destroyers have a very specific role. The Japanese destroyers are particularly stealthy. It's nice to be able to get into a cap and actually not be spotted right away. Now, you're still going to get spotted by US destroyers and Kagero. And, ultimately that's okay, but other destroyers, especially tier 7 destroyers, it's nice to spot them before they spot you. However, Steering Gears Mod 3 in this slot, plus the, Propulsion Mod 2 could be a viable build if that's the direction you want to go, and you just don't care about overall stealth. We do need to talk a little bit about captain skills because this ship has two very viable builds. One is the offensive capability. The other is the anti-aircraft capabilities. And as we already kind of talked about, if you're going to run anti-aircraft, basic firing training, advanced firing training, manual fire control for AA, definitely recommended. You can play around with Concealment Expert versus IFHE on that build, but personally I would take Concealment Expert. It does allow your anti-aircraft guns to shoot further than your detection range, so you can still stealth fire your AA. For the offensive capabilities, though, there's a number of different builds that you can take. You can see here that I'm running Preventative Maintenance, Last Stand, Superintendent, IFHE, and Concealment Expert. My next 4 points are most likely going to get tossed between Basic Firing Training and Adrenaline Rush. Those will be the two that I take. I don't see the 12.5 kilometer range being a huge detriment to this ship. However, if you wanted to add 20% more on top of that, feel free to throw on AFT to push that out even further. So those are kind of my ideas for the captain builds. Let's see how that applies in battle. Alright, so as I kind of said earlier in this, this ship is probably the most hard-hit ship of all of the destroyers with the stealth fire changes. And the reason for that is this ship, if you threw on AFT, if you threw on Concealment Expert and full concealment build, your stealth fire range started at like 9.6 kilometers or something ridiculous like that, and you had like a 12.9 kilometer max range. So you had this really big stealth fire window at which you could harass battleships pretty much at will. But since that has changed, I definitely recommend tweaking your playstyle. I don't see AFT as being all that useful. However, you do have the muzzle velocity if you wanted to do that to absolutely harass ships at long range. I think the muzzle velocity on these things is like 1,000 meters per second. I mean, it's unbelievably quick. It's a tiny 4-inch shell, though. This battle does not have IFHE, so I am starting more fires than I would be without it. And I am also running with a partner who is also in an Akizuki just for the added troll effect. Now, I definitely recommend playing the ship with a division mate. It just seems to make the most sense, whether you run with another US destroyer, another Akizuki, a cruiser. It really doesn't matter what you run with. Just understand that this ship's best played with support from your team. And if you can't have support from your team, it's going to be a very long and laborious play, especially to get those upgrades. Now, we are on North. We are on the north side of North, and we are going to C-Cap. C-Cap is usually a hotbed. Usually a hotbed of enemy destroyer activity. It's one of the more favored areas in which people go and play. Of course, look at what has come into range. A Cleveland. Now, Clevelands don't have radar yet. If they ever get radar, say, I don't know, whenever we get the U.S. cruiser line split, this would be suicide. However, because it is not, we're going to go ahead and engage him. And you're going to see just very quickly how these guns start to add up. We went ahead and popped smoke. We're not in the cap, but we have loaded AP. Now, this ship's AP is brutal against things that are broadside. So if you are planning on playing this ship and you see things that are broadside to you, I highly recommend you engage with AP and then switch to HE when they start getting to be a little bit more of an angle to you. That way you can still have your HE doing damage. Now, with HE, you are relying mostly on the fires without IFHE versus actual HE damage. You can see I'm not doing a whole lot of HE damage, even though we are getting a fairly decent number of penetrations. You can also see that the shell velocity is actually quite potent. He's turned broadside again, so we are back to using AP. Watch the damage numbers go up as you land those shells. As I say that, 170 damage hit comes out. Nice. Okay, so we've managed to scare him away. Well, kind of. He's still kind of lingering. We're going to go ahead and we're going to push into the cap, see what we can't find. Coordinating between them. We're almost out of smoke anyway. We got 11 seconds left on the first puff of smoke. So it's time to bail anyway. Use those turrets. You still want to pre-plan all of your engagements. There's no destroyer that came to sea, and so we are going to go ahead and take advantage of that. And we got a Budioni here, and we might as well throw some torps out. Pop the reload booster. And, well, he disappeared. And that kind of sucks. So we launched a set super short. Budioni is really close, but we got smoke laid because my teammate and I are coordinating ourselves with this. And you can see here just the amount of torpedoes that went in the water. He's screwed. But watch the damage numbers as they roll up. Bye, Felicia. Definitely racking up the damage, and there is a torpedo hit for first blood. And we've captured C. Excellent. So our next goal here is, because our team seems to be pushing through C, we are going to want to go ahead and push into D. Now there are ships over at D, and we need to also pre-plan this engagement a little bit. Torpedoes are down. We got a minute 3 left to go. We both used our torpedo reload booster, so there's a disadvantage there, a disincentive to doing much. Ooh, we got a hipper here. Okay, so we're gonna slow down already. As soon as I saw him, I was like, man, we can really push this. And yeah, 3 grand, just poof. There's another 4 grand. You can see how this AP really adds up. And, well, gun arcs aren't quite US arcs, so we don't get the privilege of fully abusing the terrain here. But we are going to go ahead and pop out here on the other side of this and go ahead and shoot at this shores. Now, again, AP adding up to doing a fairly good amount of damage. I think we're already up to the server average in damage. Still going to pop out on the other side of this because we've got other ships over here, and it is our turn to go harass them. Now there is a Colorado over here. Ooh, I like playing with Colorados. Colorados and other U.S. battleships tend to have weaker upper belt armor. My teammate here is going whole hog on this poor guy without his smoke up. Like a moron. No, I'm just kidding. He knows what he's doing. I'm trying to get up there to smoke him, and I'm telling him as much in this. I'm trying to stay stealthed up as best I possibly can. Lay down that smoke screen. Do my best to help him. We're detected now, so we're going to go ahead and start engaging. We've got that freaking Bismarck secondaries just going whole hog too. Not good. K-bomb needs to go a little bit further forward. Now he's not detected. And, oh look. Hey there. There's a torpedo tube for you. A torpedo hit for you. And we're going to go ahead and just keep poking him. Yep. Okay, so now that we have managed to kill off that Colorado, it is time to boogie on out of here, out of the range. We're going to... We've fired, but really what should be happening here is I should be trying to stealth up a little bit here. And we are going to go ahead and keep our engagement. Ow! There's a big hit. Those 15-inch guns have a tendency to penetrate more than they have a tendency to over-penetrate, especially when you're angled like that. One of the things that you do need to get used to is this ship is very long, and as a result, any shells that do come into this ship at any angle are going to do a fairly decent amount of damage, so you do have to be careful in how you plan and do your engagements. If you're planning on running away from ships, I definitely recommend presenting as little profile as possible, simply to avoid all of the problems associated with being angled. If it does penetrate, which it will penetrate and overmatch, you definitely need to be cognizant of the fact that that is going to hurt. So definitely presenting as little profile as possible to minimize your chances of getting hit at all. And follow that up with, of course, following that up with speed boost if you've got it available, as well as plenty of heavy WASD. So we're going to dive back on over to C, because that's where all the enemies went. There's no reason for us to try and chase them around the horn of D. We're waiting for K-bomb to show up here, waiting to see kind of what support we're going to get if we come around this corner, and the answer is none. Which is really rather unfortunate. Maybe this cruiser that's up here will turn around. We got a battleship that's kind of coming this way too, so maybe we'll get lucky here. We're at 63,232 damage, which is really quite good for this ship, especially post-nerf, and especially without IFHE to really help boost the damage numbers. Now we got this New Mexico here. Paying attention to the direction he's going on the mini-map. He's going to be on the other side of an island by the time torpedoes get there, so it's not worth launching those torpedoes at the moment. Switch back to our guns. You can see I'm using AP a lot, and that's because this ship... Whoa, we're detected. Not only are we detected, but we are stuck. Things that aren't good for 10,000. Okay, finally managed to get moving again. We are now no longer detected, and we managed to start the New Mexico on fire. Excellent. And something is detecting us. Like, what is detecting me? That's what I'm sitting here thinking, like, fine. We'll just pop smoke and we'll just light up this Bismarck. Not that either one of those ships could really have hit me with their main batteries, due to the fact that the island was pretty much blocking their shells as much as they're blocking mine. If I was in a U.S. destroyer in Atlanta, this would be like a fantastic place to hide. But because we're not in one of those, it's a really bad place to hide. Still, this Bismarck has managed to kind of... I'm going to call this an error, because that's really what it is. K-bomb has gone off and has managed to spot for me. And we've separated now at this point, but we've managed to start a fire, and he's angled, so this is ideal, and we are going to switch to AP here as soon as this we get ourselves a little bit better. You can see we're not doing any damage to him, so we are switching to AP now, finally, and we are going to watch the damage numbers roll. We are doing some fire damage, very little fire damage, but we are adding up about 1,000 AP damage every single time. We are also going to launch a set of torpedoes, fully anticipating this guy coming back towards me, and our smoke is about to disappear. So you can see we've got good torpedo placement. Very good torpedo placement. we got to be careful because there's a New Mexico there. But maybe we'll get lucky with the torpedo. And, well, maybe not. Engage. Trying to get back behind. Oh, he spotted them. Okay, so we're not going to get any torpedoes. We definitely do need to go ahead and start engaging these ships. We've got some help now in the form of a cruiser. Okay, maybe not. Keep backing up here. Well, no. We need to get out back into this fight. We definitely need to help sink this Bismarck. K-Bomb is up there by himself. Not a good place to be, but he is still starting him on fire. And in hindsight, I probably should have been engaging that New Mexico from the get-go, but that's alright. So the Alabama on our team manages to smoke him, and we're still behind an island, so we are going to go ahead and use this to our advantage to harass this New Mexico, possibly start him on fire. You can see these shells are just breaking on his armor, not doing a whole lot in the way of damage, but of course, every round that lands, whether it penetrates or not, has a chance to start a fire, and with IFHE probably would have a better chance of starting and doing damage. So there's another fire! This poor New Mexico just can't get out of the out of range to avoid further fire damage and harassment. And well, we're up to 84,000 damage, and you can see we are now using island cover for the majority of our... oh, there's another fire. That's rough. We are using the island cover to help us, you know, stay alive as long as possible, especially since I'm low on hit points. I'm sure K-Bomb is as well. K-Bomb has managed to survive this. Oh, Confederate! 91,000 damage. Still going. And then the game ends. Oh, that's kind of rough. But ultimately, you know, this ship, with 92,335 damage, 2 sinks, base XP of 1,590. We got Confederate thrown in there, so that helps. And here you can see the damage done by fires and floodings. This ship is alright. I mean, it has its problems, don't get me wrong. It's not perfect. I wish that Stealth Fire nerf didn't happen specifically so I could troll battleship players with the ship, but it's really not a bad ship, and I think if you play it more like an Atlanta and less like a destroyer, it can do well for you as well. Anyway, I'm your Peacekeeper. Like, comment, subscribe, and thank you for watching.